Welcome to the Deep Dive. You know, sometimes you hear a statistic that just stops you in your tracks, like this one. In China, they've already got over 261 million digital Yuan wallets active. And those wallets, they've handled almost $1 trillion in transactions already. It's a huge sign of how money itself is changing, like right now. So today, we're jumping right into this escalating digital currency competition. We're talking US versus China. And really, this isn't just some tech race, is it? It feels much bigger, like it's about the future shape of global finance itself, which of course affects all of us. Okay, so our mission today in this deep dive, let's try to unpack the strategies these two superpowers are using. They're quite distinct. We'll look at their strengths, the challenges they're facing, and they are significant, and what it all means for the global economy, and for your own financial future. We've gathered some fresh insights, some specific market forecasts from our sources to really give you a clear picture of where this whole thing might be headed.
That's right. And if we look at the immediate forecast, the sources are pretty clear. The U.S. right now, it's definitely in the lead in this digital currency space, mostly because of its huge private stablecoin market. But, and this is a big but, China's moves are strategic and they are, rapidly reshaping things. Our sources really highlight this fascinating contrast in how they're approaching it and some of the projections. Pretty eye-opening.
All right, let's dive in then, starting with China and its digital yuan, the ECNY. It seems like they have this multi-pronged approach. Domestically, the uptake is just, massive. Like I mentioned, by June 2024, over 261 million wallets, transactions hitting nearly 7 trillion yuan. That's almost 980 billion US dollars.
Almost a trillion, yeah.
And it's being used across 26 major cities now? For everything from just buying groceries to pitching civil servants, it's really woven into the fabric over there.
Exactly. And what's really fascinating is how they're using that domestic success as a springboard. It's not just for China. The governor of the People's Bank of China, Pan Gongsheng, he actually talked about envisioning a new global currency order. His words were something like, a few sovereign currencies coexist, compete, and check and balance each other. Which, if you think about it, that's a pretty direct challenge to the US dollar's long-standing dominance.
A direct challenge indeed. And maybe the biggest piece of that challenge is this mBridge initiative. What exactly is that and why is it potentially such a game changer?
Oh, mBridge is huge strategically. It's not just another payment system. Think of it more like a potential bypass, a way to potentially sidestep the dollar's traditional role in international transactions. It's this cross-border payment platform China's building with Hong Kong, Thailand, the UAE, and now Saudi Arabia too. They've already run pilots, moved over, $22 million in real value, showing it can work outside the usual SWIFT system that handles most global bank transfers. And the advantages are pretty compelling. You get real-time settlement using central bank money across different currencies. Plus, it connects banks directly, peer-to-peer. So you cut out all those intermediary banks, the correspondent banking chains that add time and risk and, frankly, cost. It hit its minimum viable product stage, the MVP, in 2024. But here's where it gets really telling. The Bank for International Settlements, the BIS, they actually pulled out of the project in October 2024, and the reason they gave. Concerns that mBridge could be used to get around Western sanctions. So you see, it's not just tech, it's deeply political.
Wow, that BIS withdrawal speaks volumes. Okay, so mBridge is one track. But China's also pursuing this Yuan stablecoin strategy, right? And doing it through Hong Kong. Why not just issue it directly from the mainland?
That's a great question, and the answer really lies in China's capital controls. They have pretty strict rules about money flowing in and out of the mainland. Those rules make it, extremely difficult to issue a domestic yuan stablecoin that could be freely used internationally. So instead, you see these big Chinese tech companies, JD.com, Ant Group, they're pushing hard in Hong Kong. They're lobbying to get yuan-pegged stablecoins authorized there. They see it as, and I quote, urgently needed to advance yuan internationalization.
Okay, so they're using Hong Kong as a sort of offshore base for this.
Exactly. They're leveraging Hong Kong's new stablecoin ordinance that kicks in August 1st, 2025, and Hong Kong's existing role as the main hub for offshore yuan trading. About 70% goes through there. Our sources basically frame this as China trying to build a strategic counterbalance to the U.S. dominance in stablecoins. They're kind of building an alternative system, but from the outside in, because of those capital controls.
Right, building alternative, chipping away. Fascinating. But now, let's flip the coin, because the U.S. strategy seems almost the polar opposite, doesn't it? And they've got this huge head start already. How did the U.S. get such a dominant position?
Well, the U.S. approach has been quite different. It's been largely driven by the private sector, by innovation in stablecoins, And it's really paid off in terms of market share. Right now, something like 98% of the entire stablecoin market, which is worth around $247 billion, is pegged to the US dollar. It's staggering. You have these giants, Tether, USDT, and USD Coin, USDC. Together, they control about 87% of the market. This creates a massive network effect. People use them because everyone else uses them. It reinforces dollar usage globally, kind of organically, without needing a government-issued digital dollar like China's ECNY.
That's an incredible lead, 98%. But is the US government just letting this happen? Or is there a regulatory strategy behind it?
Oh, there's definitely a strategy. It's not just happening by accident. The Genius Act is absolutely central here. This law, signed by President Trump, sets up a pretty comprehensive regulatory framework specifically for these dollar-backed stablecoins. It positions the U.S. as a leader in regulating this space globally, and the intent is quite explicit. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said he sees the act as a way to, quote, buttress the dollar's status as the global reserve currency. He even suggested it would lead to a surge in demand for U.S. treasuries. So it's very strategic. These private stablecoins essentially become buyers of U.S. debt.
That's quite a move, turning private innovation into support for government debt. And the other advantages for the U.S. must be pretty significant, too.
Absolutely. Just the Treasury purchases alone, stablecoin issuers now hold over $200 billion in U.S. Treasuries. They're effectively some of the biggest holders of U.S. debt. Then there's the global reach. These stablecoins extend the dollar's influence into markets maybe traditional banks couldn't easily reach. It also, let's be frank, enhances financial surveillance capabilities over global dollar transactions. And having that clear regulation, like the Genius Act, it attracts international stablecoin businesses to operate under U.S. rules. It's a very powerful mix.
Okay, so we've got these two very different playbooks. China building state-led alternatives, the U.S. leveraging private sector dominance with strategic regulation. As you look at them side by side, what really strikes you as the most fundamental difference in how they're approaching this? And I'd love to hear what you, our listeners, think too. Which strategy seems more sustainable long-term?
Yeah, the difference is stark. It really is like asymmetric warfare, as some sources put it. The U.S. is working from a position of strength, leveraging huge first-mover advantages in stablecoins. Like we said, that market dominance over 99% dollar-denominated creates inertia. It's hard to displace. Then there's the deep integration. Dollar stablecoins are already plugged into crypto exchanges, into DeFi that's decentralized finance all over the world, and the Treasury market link is huge. Stablecoin growth automatically fuels demand for U.S. government debt. It's a neat, self-reinforcing loop. Plus, the geopolitical leverage extending U.S. financial influence and oversight without needing boots on the ground, so to speak. The existing system is heavily dollarized.
But China's not just throwing in the towel, obviously. They face some serious hurdles, though, right? You mentioned the capital controls stopping them from just issuing their own global CNY stablecoin. Yeah. And breaking those existing dollar network effects, that seems like a monumental task.
It is.
Plus, the yuan just isn't used that much internationally compared to the dollar. What was the figure? Like under 3% of global payments versus almost 50% for the dollar.
Yeah, 2.89% versus 48.46%. It's a huge gap.
And you mentioned regulatory fragmentation within China, too. So given all those headwinds, what are their counter moves? How are they trying to level the playing field?
Well, they're being very methodical, pursuing several strategies at once to try and overcome these disadvantages. They're really focusing on regional integration, using things like the Belt and Road Initiative, BRICS Plus partnerships to create sort of yuan-friendly zones and payment channels. They're building those alternative institutions. We've talked about Enbridge, their own CIPS system, specifically designed to offer ways around the dollar-based systems. China's also playing to its strengths in technology, especially with the ECNY design, hoping to offer maybe a better user experience down the line. And they're starting small, trying to build up yuan usage gradually through things like trade finance, paying for commodities in yuan before making a bigger push with stablecoins, perhaps. It's definitely a long game for them.
This really does feel like it goes way beyond just currency and tech, doesn't it? When you talk about bypassing sanctions, global standards, surveillance, what are the deeper issues at stake here? Is this fundamentally about who controls the rules of the global economy?
I think it absolutely is. This competition forces us to ask some really fundamental questions about global economic governance. Things like monetary sovereignty. Can nations truly control their own financial destiny when global digital currencies, potentially run by other states or private firms, become widespread? It brings up huge debates around financial privacy versus state surveillance in these new digital systems. Who sees what? And critically, Does the rise of alternatives like Enbridge make economic sanctions less effective as a foreign policy tool? Ultimately, yeah, it's about who gets to set the technical standards, the governance rules for the digital money infrastructure of the future. Some academic analysis we looked at suggests the dynamic has shifted. It used to be maybe friendly foes, each focusing domestically. Now, it looks more like aggressive strategic rivalry. You see China speeding up its international ECNY plans right after the U.S. passed its stablecoin laws. And Chinese economists are sounding alarms about dollar stablecoin dominance, calling for urgent development of Yuan stablecoins. Beijing clearly sees this as a serious, almost existential challenge to their financial ambitions.
So the big question, who comes out ahead? Looking at the forecasts from our sources over different time frames, in the short term, let's say the next couple years, 2025 to 2027, the U.S. looks set to keep its lead, maybe even strengthen it. They've got the existing stablecoin infrastructure, the Genius Act provides that regulatory clarity, the treasury market benefits are real, and those network effects just incredibly powerful. It's hard to switch away from the dollar system quickly.
Okay, so advantage USA in the short run, but you mentioned things are reshaping. What about the medium term, say out to 2032 or so? Does the picture get murkier?
It does get more complex, yeah. China has several things working in its favor that could gain traction by then. That Enbridge platform could mature into a truly viable alternative to SWIFT for certain regions or types of transactions. The launch of Yuan stablecoins out of Hong Kong might start making inroads, particularly in Asia. Integration through the Belt and Road projects could create more natural demand for paying in Yuan within that network. And China might pull ahead in terms of the technology or user experience of its CBDC. On the other hand, the US faces potential vulnerabilities. Global regulations might fragment, creating barriers for US stablecoins in some places. Rising geopolitical tensions could push more countries to actively seek out non-dollar alternatives. And there's always the risk that the US gets complacent, assuming the dollar's dominance is unshakable and doesn't adapt policy quickly enough.
So a more competitive landscape in the medium term. What about the really long view, beyond 2032? Does one eventually win, or does it look different?
The consensus in the sources seems to be that we're probably not heading for one single winner takes all. It's more likely a multipolar financial system. Kind of like that vision PBOC Governor Pan Gongsheng laid out. A few sovereign currencies coexist, compete, and check and balance each other. You'll likely see the emergence of stronger regional currency blocks, maybe tied to trade patterns and political alliances. Think a dollar block, maybe a yuan block, perhaps others. Technologically, things might converge. Systems might adopt smaller underlying tech standards, but the governance, the control, would likely remain separate. So you'd have these interoperable but still competing networks. A world with multiple financial centers of gravity, essentially.
Right. So to wrap this up, it feels like this digital currency race is really just the start, maybe the opening phase of a pretty fundamental shakeup in global money. The U.S. definitely has the edge now with dollar stablecoins, but China's systematic, state-driven approach is a serious long-term challenge. It's incredibly dynamic.
Absolutely. And the ultimate stakes are incredibly high. The winner or winners won't just be decided by who has the slickest tech or the clearest regulations. It'll come down to which system or systems can actually better serve what global users need, while crucially maintaining that trust and confidence that any monetary system relies on. Both the US and China recognize this. They understand that controlling the future rails of money might be just as critical as traditional military or economic might in the 21st century.
So a final thought for you to ponder as this all unfolds. Which systems, state-run, private, or maybe some hybrid, do you think will ultimately earn that global trust? Which will best serve users around the world? And how might the answer to that question reshape global power as we know it? We'd genuinely love to hear your perspective on this.